You know, what's been interesting, and it's been spoken about so much. So, of course, there's so much out there of how you decided to join films, the early part of your career. But constantly it comes up that at the peak of your career, you moved to New York. It's like, it's every news line, right? Like back in the day.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
So I did. I kind of, when Devdi was releasing, just before release, I just went off to New York. And I think I was finding it really hard to deal with the attention and the fame because I started to get flashbacks of as a kid, because I was a very sensitive kid and I didn't like the attention. I liked the art, I liked the creativity, I liked the medium, but I just didn't like the attention that came with it. And I knew that Oi Lucky had come and I knew Devdi was going to be big. And I just didn't want to be famous. But at the same time, I wanted to act. And there was a conflict within me. And I focused a lot on the negatives. I hadn't resolved many issues. So I just ran away because I was afraid of being famous. And everything that came with it. What the privilege I see for my own self growing up in a film environment is I saw fame up front as a kid. And I was never enamored by it. You know, a lot of people will first chase that and they usually get bitten once they hit a peak. I was already bitten, you know, so I was like, I know it would bring me down. How do I navigate this space? And I didn't know how to. I really didn't know how to. I mean, it wasn't there's no right or wrong. It was definitely a trauma response, but it had to happen. Yeah, I don't regret it. I didn't care about stardom. I care about the acting. And yeah, there's a lot I can say, but yeah.
So when you did move to New York, you also spoke about the fact that you continued to drink after that, after the character.
Yeah.
What was that year like? Just, you know, in terms of, because so many people today, right, talk about like taking a sabbatical or taking a break in order to, you disconnect to reconnect effectively.
Yeah.
But it's often misunderstood or it's executed poorly, where you don't necessarily end up with answers, but like more questions, hypothetically. So what was your year like, and how did you arrive at the decision that, okay, maybe I'll go back, or maybe I figured
When
some
I
stuff out?
went there, I knew it wouldn't be forever because I was just indulging.
Yeah.
I was just indulging. I was very destructive. And, you know, they say some actors take their work home, and it's a process to learn how not to be affected. And I'm not now. I mean, I'm older now, and I don't take my work home. And I think of myself, at least, as extremely self-absorbed and indulgent to take that work home. It's like, get over yourself. You're just an actor, you know? You should just embrace the privilege of being an actor as opposed to focus on the pitfalls that come with it and stop taking yourself so seriously. So that was my takeaway, but that didn't happen at the end of that year. If anything, I got more and more destructive as that year progressed. I knew what I was sacrificing. I knew that this was my time to capitalize on my success with the industry. But when I looked at the industry, all I saw was the trauma as a kid and remembered, you know, the experiences that my taya, my uncle, my brothers had gone through, and the things they said, and the stories they had, and the system that was in place, and how things are done. You know, like it's called the glamour industry, but there's nothing glamorous in it. So all my focus was there, and all my fears were there. And so I was just like, great, I can just walk away. I don't want any of this, which was also disingenuous because I did want to continue acting. I did want to open up the scale of the kind of productions I would do, but I just didn't know if I would have any authenticity left in me if I was to do the things that an actor would normally have to do to get success, to get stardom.
Give me an example. What would an actor...
I mean, like for me, one of the things which now I'm not so about anymore, I embrace it because the world has changed, is personal publicity, marketing, PR. I was like, how disgusting is that? Like, my work should speak for itself. Why am I investing and putting myself in the papers? It's traumatic being in the papers. You know, why am I like ensuring that I'm visible everywhere so that I get brands? Why should I even endorse brands? You know what I mean? I'm an artist. Artists should not be owned by any corporation. Now, corporations fund everything now. And the films I was making are funded by corporations. But as an individual, I thought that was one of the worst things I could do. I don't necessarily agree with that anymore, because a corporate can also fund and give birth to many positive things as well. But at that time, because my focus was so much on the negatives, which also exist, that I wasn't seeing beyond the negative. I was only looking at that. Even when I started, it had just started to shift. It hadn't shifted yet. You didn't have to be a brand face. You could just be an actor. Your films could do well, and you could be away from the public eye. You could still hold this sort of mystery about you, because people don't know anything much, because you don't show up publicly. You show up when you do your work, and then you go back into silence and obscurity, so to speak. And that changed over the first few years of me entering the industry. So there was an element of that back in the day where actors could do that. They could just stay actors. They're not, the brand was purely them being artistic, really, and individuals. The only thing they're selling to you are their films and nothing outside of that. So there was an era that was like that. And I'd seen it up close as a kid. There was a remnant of it when I entered the industry, but it was dying at that point. And I didn't see that happening.
So how did the success of Devdi play into this entire mix?
I think there was a lot of validation, because those were the years, those early years, I was really, somehow, I was able to make all these kind of movies as Devdi, Oi Lucky, Manorama, Road Movie and all of that. And in the industry wasn't very open, because they just thought that this wouldn't work, because especially back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, no one was making that kind of stuff. Or very few people were at least trying to. So I got a lot of sort of patronizing attitude, like, yeah, sweet, try. Like I'm a kid. And I was new. Who am I to say that, hey, let's change the system? Prove yourself. You haven't improved yourself. And it was always usually you get launched, you get supported, and then once you're famous, you then start taking chances. Here I was, I was launched my first movie. It didn't do that well for me, but I was still a newcomer. I still had a lot more to prove, since my first film didn't commercially do well. So who am I to say, hey, I have an idea, or hey, let's do things this way? Like, who are you? So I think when finally it started to pay off, I then started to, the patronizing and condescension changed from that to, oh, hey, actually, you're great. You're amazing. We'd love to work with you. And I was really angry with them for, first of all, not seeing me for who I am. And B, they came back to me, and all the big names came to me to work with me then. Bless them. I mean, I can see where they were coming from. But back then, I just found it disingenuous that you didn't have any faith in me. Now, suddenly you have faith in me. But the product you want me to make conforms to your filmmaking. Which is exactly the opposite of what I've done. Had I done that, you wouldn't even be sitting with me right now.
Correct.
So why don't you do what I say? And that was considered as arrogance, which I guess is in a way. But then it worked what I did. So it was very confusing for me. And so I didn't fit in to the industry at all. And I wasn't even trying.
How did you decide that, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to come back and let's just play out the cards, right?
I mean, I knew I wasn't going to stay forever. I was just in New York, really playing out the part I did in the AFD, getting drunk, you know what I mean? And not working or nothing, and just like terrible with my money. And, it was a waste in that sense. I don't call it a waste now, because all experiences are good if you can learn something from them. But it was destructive. So I knew it wasn't going to last. It wasn't going to be forever. I have to come back home and continue to earn and, support myself, family, all of that. These are responsibilities you have to come back to. This is a make-believe world. So I knew I was going to come back. It's not like
it was not a permanent thing ever.
I knew it was never going to be permanent. It was an escape.